would you consider a delay to the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone?
Can we keep this quite brief? Because although it's of paramount importance to Louis, not necessarily everybody else listening is going to share his concerns. But give him a proper answer.
Well, no, let me tell you why. We've got a public health emergency in London. We've got thousands of premature deaths directly caused by the poor quality air. Across the country, it's 40,000. We've got children with underdeveloped lungs, stunted lungs, as a direct consequence of poor quality air. Adults with all sorts of health issues, from asthma to dementia to heart disease, directly caused by the poor quality air. The air in our city is a killer. And what compounds this is we also now have evidence that in the poorest parts of London, the air is the worst. And we also know poorest Londoners tend to be least likely to be car owners. So what the ultra-low emission zone is about is part of a package of measures we're taking across our city to clean up the air in London. And the evidence we have is that the ultra-low emission zone will lead to the poorest parts of London seeing the biggest improvements in the quality of air in our city.
How's it going to hit you, Louis? How hard?
So, I'll tell you a bit about my situation quickly.
Sure.
I own a van hire business in New Cross. I own roughly 100 vans. I'm inside the expansion zone, and every single one of my vehicles is subject to the charge. Consequently, my vehicle values have almost halved, making it impossible for me to go and purchase new vehicles because my assets have dropped to so much in value. Vehicles weren't mandated to be Euro 6, which is what qualifies, until September 2016. So that's only 2.5 years old by April when the ultra-low emission zone comes out. I acquired huge loans to upgrade my fleet. I don't run sort of old banger type vehicles,
sure,
but it's way too stringent. And now I'm facing a tax. It's a tax on the poor. It's a tax on small business. The issue that I have is that this was rolled out insidiously. The consultation was kept so quiet. I wasn't asked. No one that I know in business was asked. The consultation was a complete farce. There was only 37,000 people that voted in the consultation. It's led to people panic buying and panic selling, which has meant that the vehicles that don't qualify end up almost halving in value, and the ones that do qualify are extremely expensive.
That's just not fair, Mayor.
Well, just make sure we got the facts right. Louis, so we've had a number of consultations. We had the T-charge, which was introduced in October 2017, and that applies to Euro 4. And the ultra-low emissions zone, we've had expansive consultation with record numbers responding to the consultation. One of the concerns I have with businesses like yours is one of the reasons why I've been lobbying the government for a diesel scrappage scheme. They've said no, even though they accept we've got an air quality crisis. So what I've done is introduce our own diesel scrappage scheme using monies from City Hall, which supports smaller businesses, and then we announced £23 million before Christmas to support the smallest businesses. But it is the poorest Londoners, as I said, who suffer the worst quality air. On average, 25% worse nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen oxide in the most deprived parts of London than in the more affluent parts of London. The cost to our economy in London is approximately £4 billion, and it's £20 billion across the country. So in addition to it being a public health emergency, there's an economic case to clean up the air in our city. And so we've been talking about this for a number of years now. Since I became mayor and during my campaign, we talked about the need to clean up the air in London and the ultra-low emission zone being brought forward. Indeed, on this programme, I've discussed this with listeners on a number of occasions before as well. But it's part of a package of measures we're taking.
They're only really asking, because I presume, Louis, you're referring to this call today for the soft launch that many small businesses are behind. They're only really asking for a sort of 3-month delay on the £12.50 daily charge, a bit of help giving them time to switch to greener vehicles. They're backed by the Federation for Small Business as well.
And we're working closely with the Federation of Small Business. That's one of the reasons why we announced the diesel scrappage scheme in December of £23 million, and we'll be announcing shortly how that will support businesses like Louis going forward. But we are working with the FSB. We're working also with the CBI, with councils, with business improvement districts, with the NHS, with parents across London, also with schools and councils as well. We're listening to a number of different very important stakeholders, not least small businesses.
Thank you. Actually, Luke, before you go briefly, and in layman's terms, what happens to your fleet when the charge comes in?
Well, he's not saving lives because all he's doing is displacing an issue from one city to another, because Manchester and Birmingham, they're just going to have access to cheap vans.
So you're going to flog all of your vans for less than they would have been worth if the charge hadn't come in?
Oh, 100%. So the van, say, that's worth 10 grand is now worth closer to, it's about to be about 5,500.
Are you going to survive?
My vehicles, I don't think so. Well, I may do, but I'm not sure how. And I think there needs to be some sort of help from the government or a stay of execution, because this is not viable for small business. What about the people who have taken out a loan on a vehicle, 4 or 5 year loan, a couple of years ago, and now they're in negative equity in their vehicles because their vehicles are nigh on worthless? What then?
Well, Lou, we're currently talking to the FSB and many others as well in relation to what we can do before April. We'll also continue to lobby the government. We've not had a response back from Michael Gove in relation to the detailed plans we sent them. We even signposted to them where they could find the money from in relation to other schemes they have across the country to support London.
That's quite an interesting point, though, because you talk about scrappage and he talks about selling. So you're not taking the vehicles off the roads, you're just taking them off some roads?
No, the way it works is, so we've not announced yet the details of the scrappage scheme. So what we announced was the sum of money. So we've announced the size of the pie, £23 million. What we're working on over the last few weeks is how we divvy up that pie with different business owners in London. The key thing is we don't want the area in London to continue to get worse. The area in London is illegal. There's been court cases. The government's been taken to court about this, and one of the points the judges have made is the government doesn't have a plan how they clean up the air in London and across the country. We have a plan how we're going to clean up the air, but we need the government support. Only half of the NOx, the nitrogen dioxide, comes from transport. The other half comes from River Thames, construction and other issues. That's why we need the government to support us clean up the other half.
I'm probably breaking some rules here, Louis, but let's try to throw some business your way while we can. What's the name of your company?
It's Ace Rent-A-Van, just off the Old Kent Road.